Thank you. I think it's going to cut into part of this, but that's okay because there's a delay. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. This was already juicy. So I just want to say welcome everyone. This is Michelle for Wind Down Wednesday. We're on a little early today because we really wanted to include Krishan on our live, and we want to take into account that she is on a whole different continent and time zone. So I just want to say thank you again for coming on with us. Beautiful Charlotte. I've known these ladies, they're like my online sisters
Mhm.
for quite a few years. I know Charlotte, I don't know if you remember this, but we met through Riley Jackson with Blackset Radio. That's my first time I met you, and I meant to
Your
say
name
that.
from?
Michelle,
I didn't put
yes.
it together.
Yeah, that's our first time. We went on one of his group meetings when he was assigning us channel or times that we could be on Blackset Radio. That was my
Oh,
first
wow.
time meeting you.
That is why I'm just putting that together.
Yes, I was Afro expats at that point. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember that. This was like
Yes, you had somebody else with you.
2019. Yes, 2019.
Wow.
So crazy. Anyway, here we are. I hope you all can hear us okay. Welcome, everyone. I'll get to you in 1 second, but I just wanted to say tonight, or this afternoon, we're going to be talking about the various relocation projects and programs that each of us offer from Panama, Mexico, Portugal, because these are kind of the hot countries where each of us reside. And just we want to bring as much light to making the move and hopefully making it the right way for you, okay? Because there
Mhm.
is no exact path nor exact blueprint. However, we do encourage people to get help, whether it's through one of our programs. So I want to make sure that you all have that. We will get to finding how we find each of you in a moment. But we just want to kind of make sure that each of you understand that we're here to educate you as much as we can on these steps based on our experiences, right? We were just talking
Mhm.
about that. We were talking about the psychological thing that's big. I'm discovering this more and more. We're talking about the steps and people's expectations and whether it's realistic or not always realistic, and that everyone's journey is different. So I just want to say thank you. I'll go around and let each of you introduce yourself, but before I do that, I just want to say thank you to Michelle Watson, as always, for being our official tea sponsor at Casa Elm and Hacienda Elm. Here is her link. Feel free to check her out. And also, most of you may already know this, I have recently launched Hacienda Elm, which is my 60 plus community. Thank you. Featured in Essence, I keep forgetting to talk about that. It is a big deal, so thanks to Helona Black for reaching out to me and including me in that article. I really appreciate it. Of course, I don't have the link here. Shame on me. I'll have it next week. But I just wanted to say thank you to her as well for including me in that write up. If you don't know about Hacienda Elm, you can visit me here and see what it's all about. You can find our Try It On program on the link that I just sent you. And I want to say really quickly, welcome to the people in the comments. Let's see who's here already. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Show About Nothing. That's the name. Hi,
Yeah.
Desiree. I guess some of these people you know. Stacy Peterson, welcome. Diane, we love our Diane. There she is. Welcome. She says hello to everyone. Harlem Minded, welcome. Buenas tardes. Welcome, Carmen. Hi. Larry and Karen, welcome. Thank you all. Okay.
Karen. Karen is
Yes.
my bestie ever.
Oh, okay. Hi, bestie. Thanks for being here. All right, so I'll let Charlotte Van Horn start with Black Expats of Panama and tell us about your brand, tell us about yourself and how you've helped people over these past years, how long you've been doing this, and kind of just like your thing. I know you're in Colombia, you can also share that as well.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. It is such a privilege and an honor to sit down with you, like-minded, amazing women. You know, we were talking about earlier how women are just leading this thing, and it's not even a feminist situation. It just is. It's just we see the need and we decided to move in it, and we're becoming more and more comfortable in moving with it. My name is Charlotte Van Horn. I am the CEO and founder of Black Expats in Panama. We started out as a Facebook group in 2019 because I was going to retire in Panama. My husband and I had invested several years before, and I figured I was going to be retiring at some point, and I needed to. I was going to do sister locks, and so that's why I created this group, Black Expats in Panama, because my client was not going to be the average Panamanian. Not that they don't have Afro hair, but it's just even with the pricing, it would be out of the range that the average Panamanian would spend on hair. And so I said, I need expats. I kept looking for black expats, and I just couldn't find it. And then I love the Lord. He heard my cry, and the Holy Spirit said, build it, start it, and just go from there because I kept going back and checking like it was going to appear. Anyway, started this Facebook group, Black Expats in Panama, and I created a private group and a public page. And that was a good move for those that are, starting different things. Go ahead and tap into both of those. You're going to have a private and you have public, but I don't want to talk too long. So started that 5 years ago. Everything changed when George Floyd was murdered right in front of our eyes. Basically, we have just decided that from now on, every May when we celebrate the anniversary of our beginning tours, like, George Floyd happened. George Floyd was murdered in May of 2020. We did our first cultural relocation tour in May of 2021. But when that happened in front of us, something clicked, and I just remember Gail King being on the news, and she was just saying, it's too much today. It was Karen in the park. I'll never forget it. It was Karen in the park, it was George Floyd, the Orange Man, and COVID. And it was just too much. And when she said that, tears just rolled down my face because that's exactly what I was feeling. And apparently that's what the world was feeling. And so my group had about 200 people in it at that time that I had built over the year. And all of a sudden, people start saying, what is it like living in Panama? Are black people there? What is police brutality like there? And I'm like, oh no, I just want to do hair. You know what I'm saying? And make a long story short, Black Expats in Panama was created and developed because of a need, because people were asking me, we need help. Where can we go? Is Panama that place? And I assembled a team and decided that this tour would not just be a relocation tour, but it would be a cultural relocation tour because I had been coming to Panama for too many years and not really understanding the Black culture. By then, I had started to get into it and understand it. And I thought we need something that's cultural so that when people move here, they're not disrespectful like people are when they come to the United States. You need to come, you need to accept the culture, you need to embrace the culture, or you need to go home. That's just the way that I felt about it. So that's how Black Expats in Panama got started. And we could talk, more about it later. But it went from a Facebook page in 2019 to a seven-figure sales company in 2024.
I love that.
And I think we were talking, we're all of our, we're all about the same age in what we're doing. And it's just evolved over time. You see, I'm representing Colombia because our company has just moved in. Beep Tours, Black Expats in Panama, goes by Beep, BEIP. And Beep Tours has moved into Colombia. And we just completed our first cultural relocation tour here. And one more
Love
thing I'll say
it.
before I shut up. When I'm going into a place, Medellin was a little bit harder to find Black history. I had to really look, and I'm working with a tour operator, boots on the ground, of course. And he found this place, St. Nicholas, where the slaves lived, and a lot of Black people have left Medellin. Medellin is not highly melanated at all. It's not like Panama at all. But check this out. Found out, so we went there, and it was a way off the beaten path. But we went there, and they still have a village there. About 1,000 people still live in this village. And we went back yesterday for the first, full tour. Found out Charlotte Higginbotham Van Horn was the first non-Colombian person to ever visit their village.
Wow.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
What?
I
And
love it.
Whoa.
yesterday, or when I took the group there, they were the first non-Colombian group to ever visit that village. What a
Wow.
privilege and an honor. So that was just my highlight. Now just leave it for there for now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Oh my
love that.
gosh.
Congratulations.
What a blessing.
Absolutely. Go beep beep. I love it.
Yes. Congrats.
Yes. Congratulations on that.
Thank
All
you.
right. So, Krishan, you're up next, and then I'll
Okay.
talk about myself. But you ladies, you go ahead and
Sure.
introduce
So,
yourself.
hi, everybody. First, I want to thank you, Michelle, for extending the invitation and accommodating my time zone. And
Absolutely.
it's lovely to finally meet Charlotte. So, I'm Krishan Wright. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the founder of Black Sick Global and the host of the Black Sick Global podcast. So, I help Black women and families leave the US or wherever they are in the world for a better life abroad. And so I've been doing this for 5 years as well. Really, for me, the catalyst was much like Charlotte. It was the highly publicized deaths of, Martin Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. And I was finding myself sinking into a depression. I knew I was planning my move abroad. I had decided that since 2017, but we were in 2020 at that time. And even though I knew I was moving in 2023, those last 3 years felt like 30. And I knew I couldn't fall into myself because I had my children, my job. So I redirected that energy and I grabbed a mic and created a podcast and a community that has now helped, so many people move abroad. Now I'm living my best life here in Lisbon, Portugal. We now have close to 30 members that have moved here since I moved almost 2 years ago. 2 years
Excellent.
next week, or no, 2 weeks. It'll be 2 years that I've been here. We have our scouting program, Nomad Noir, where people come and scout with me for 10 days and we go about Portugal. We meet with different providers so you can, test it out for yourself. We also have live events. We have our celebratory 5-year anniversary yacht party coming up in October and Exodus Summit Meetup. And so it's been an amazing journey. I love the transformation that I see people make for themselves. And it's an honor and a privilege just to be, a small part of that, whether it's a source of inspiration or encouragement and support. I think if you have the desire and the drive, it's there for a reason. And my job, and I think that, the ladies here share the same sentiment. Our job is to facilitate that for you.
Love it, love it. Sorry, there's a little background sounds here. But thank you so much, Krishan. I've talked to you plenty of times and very grateful to have both of you here to just kind of go over things that we all do and some of the differences, but just even some of the things that I think people don't get to realize until it happens to them. There's always the move, right? What is the place like? What is the experience like? What is the town like? What are the expats like, et cetera? And whatever brought us and moved us, each of the three of us, to make those decisions, I think, are personal things, but at the same time, we share a common thread in regards to just leaving, for me, the United States for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned, both of you mentioned. So I'll say that I'm Michelle Wedderburn. I am the founder of CasaELM and Hacienda Elm in San Miguel de Allende. I've lived here for over 7 years. I moved here in 2018 before some of those incidents happened, but I saw a lot of those things that could affect my son, and that was really my biggest motivation of wanting to raise my Black child in another country, in another place that felt more manageable and safer. Clearly, life is, and I can't protect him from every single thing, but I wanted the environment that he was raised in to be more normal than where we were, and resemble more of what I was accustomed to growing up. And I felt that for us, Mexico was that place because I had experiences in Mexico. So I've now fast forward to 2021 is when I opened CasaELM, and CasaELM is a soft landing experience in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. We are a guest house space. We also help with relocation and individuals who are interested in moving through one of our programs. And then most recently, Hacienda Elm, which is for a 60-plus community. So if you have not checked it out, please do so. Go to haciendaelm.com and you can find out more about it. Community living, to me, has become one of the focuses for my new project because I see how people gel at CasaELM. We don't want to be alone necessarily, especially as we age. And I think as we age, I want to age classy. I want to age without being left alone in a dark room or a space that there aren't a lot of people that I can interact with. And I think the time to make those decisions are when we are in our 60s and mid 60s and 70s, when we have the able body, when we have the mental mindset to say, this is how I would like my future years to live, to look like. So those are big reasons for myself of why I pursue these types of things. I love building communities. So I just want to say thank you again for being here, because we all have amazing stories, and all of those incidents that you mentioned really were a huge part, I think, of many Black expats groups that popped up in 2020 and even prior in 2019, 2020. Like, this became a thing, right? We were all online because of COVID, and I remember thinking, like, who's gonna wanna come to San Miguel in the mountains? And girl, yes, I started a group too, and it was just kind of interesting to see the interest in this kind of movement where we had already made these decisions, but sharing those decisions, being vulnerable, because we're putting our lives out there, right? We're putting our business on YouTube streets. And I know that for me, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to talk about where I'm going and what I'm doing, but I definitely got a lot of the questions that you mentioned. And I also realized that people needed to be educated because everyone was talking about what they saw on TV and a movie script and things like that. And I'm living in this place and I'm thinking, no, it's actually not that at all. It's more this than what you've seen on television. And I wanted to educate people, even on just how big the country was. People thought Mexico was just Cancun, right? That's it. But no, it's a whole country with 32 states. And so it was important that I learned more about where I was, and also to continue to educate people that it was a good option for them. So I think that we've all grown into these roles in our respective countries. And I love, Charlotte, that you've expanded to Colombia. And yeah, I do. I think that that's great. I think also, I want to make one more comment is, if you're somewhere and you are watching this and you're somewhere that people don't know about, or you're thinking about it, go there and build it. That's all I have to say, is just go. There will be people who will want to join. They will want to know more about it. Might start off small, but go there and create the dream. Create your own dream and create your own destiny. Don't be afraid of what if and the what abouts. Just, you'll find that you grow in this determination and this faith that you learn to walk in, especially when we live abroad, because it's not easy. It's not easy
Yeah.
in the sense of, the language, I think, is probably the biggest thing, but just in general, it's not easy because you have to also believe in what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
But I do think that things happen when you start walking down that path. Just like you said, you felt how you did and you started your podcast, and now you're in
Mhm.
Portugal. Same for Charlotte.
Yeah.
It's like I did this, and I had people asking questions because now you have a group that wants to know about it, and you just keep growing from there. So if you're somewhere that we just don't know about, please start the group. Do it, do it.
Yes.
So, all right. So I just want to say welcome to Diane. Hi again. Sharon Williams, Amina. Hi. Cheryl again.
Karen,
They're over here chit-chatting. Geraldine, welcome. If I miss
hi.
anyone, just know that I'm really deep into this conversation. Okay, so I think just kind of covering some of the things we were discussing earlier, but what are like for each of you, make it brief, like the first kind of three things that someone may need to do in terms of moving abroad? Charlotte, you can start. If they seriously want to move to Panama.
If they seriously want to move to Panama, just start doing your research. Don't just look at videos and see other people having other experiences and saying, okay, that's it. They're having a good time over there, and this is where I want to be. Make sure, dig in a little bit deeper. Make sure that your pockets can handle. A lot of people move abroad thinking about the rent. And so you said, listen, the rent over there, I could have what I have now that I'm paying $3,000 a month for. I could have for $1,000 over there. But what is everything else costing you? Do you have kids that are going to have to go into private schools, because you're here? What about your health care, and things like that? It cannot just be, just so focused. And then it's like people think of their income and they say, well, my social security is 1,000 or $2,000 a month. But what kind of bills you still got in the US? It's like you don't just come here and everything about the US disappears.
Mhm.
So you bring whatever you got in the US with you. So I think, first of all, just trying to figure out, what you really want to see in your life as far as a move abroad and what places would, definitely hit that spot. Checking to see, what the convenience is getting from that space to the US. Do you have older parents? Are you older? Do you have a problem with being really far away from your kids? Maybe the further away that you go, the least expensive it's going to be. But how expensive is it going to be to get back home in a pinch when you have to? Is airfare something that might prohibit you from actually being able to go home? When you need to. And we start thinking about, well, I don't want to be that far away from my family. Well, to tell you the truth, a lot of people that are thinking about relocation at this time, they are thinking about they're old. We're older. So a lot of us are older. So really, it's like, who am I going to call in an emergency? Who am I
Mhm.
going to call in an emergency? Because you the one might need help. And if you're living in South Africa or someplace where your family may have a financial issue just being able to afford to come and see about mama, that's an issue too. So I think just start doing the research and don't move out of fear. Don't run from something, run to something. That's what I'm saying. Run to something. See what it is that you want to run to. And I'll just say this one more thing. When you were talking about, build it, so many times, when we started these things that we do back 5 years ago, everybody wasn't doing it. Everybody wasn't doing it because I looked and it wasn't there. Right?
Nope.
You looked and it wasn't there. So you built it. You built it. You didn't know whether it was going to work or not. You know what I'm saying? You didn't know where it was going to go. You didn't know if it was people were going to accept it. However, you were willing to put yourself out there to see if it would work. A lot of times, what I think people do is they wait to see if it'll work. And then when somebody else get it working, they say, bam, that's what I'm going to do. But okay, but at that time, you're no longer a pioneer. You're coming into a market that has already been developed. Okay, you are coming into a market that already has a lot of people doing the same thing. So don't be afraid to do the thing that you feel connected to. And that's the thing. It can't all be about money because it's not about that at all. And so that's what I say. I say, don't follow people who you admire so closely to the point that you're going to try to emulate what they're doing because God may have something different for you to do. But if you're paying so close attention to them, you're going to doubt everything that you want to do, thinking that, well, this is working for her. So I just had to throw that in there. And then by the time you start coming and trying to steal other people's businesses and followings and all of that kind of stuff, that's just not going to be the success that you're looking for
Mm-hmm.
ultimately.
Yeah,
I
that's a
said,
good point.
I said
Said what I
what I
said.
said.
Okay, mama. Smack, smack. Okay. No, it's true. It's so true. I think people get excited and, they want to, they feel good about their change or their new thing and they want to, kind of adapt. And I think it's okay to look at certain business models that may work for you, but still bring your own flair, and your
Mm-hmm.
own personality. We all have that, and your own thing that we can kind of follow that suit. So I agree. I agree, though. But to me, it's a market where there are still so many places in the world where you can show up and try something. Like if you've been to, for example, there aren't a ton of people. So for me, I'm Jamaican. I know there are a few people in Jamaica doing what I do, but not on a large scale. So if there's someone in Jamaica, I think you should do this because I'm not looking to move there, but I do feel like those are countries that people of color would be interested in moving to.
Mm-hmm.
And other places, like create a guest house where I can land softly, create that experience where I can land softly in some other place that I might be interested in. So those are the things I think that we want to encourage people and really know what you're talking about. And you're only going to know it by going through it,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, yeah. Good points, good points. Krishan, anything in regards to steps? Research is it's crucial. Planning is
Oh
crucial.
yeah, absolutely. I think, we were talking about before we went live is just knowing your why. Your why has to be first and foremost. Why are you doing it? Is it because you see other people doing it? You think that's the trend, or are you running from something, as Charlotte mentioned earlier? But it has to be bigger than that. It has to be bigger and it has to be something that's meaningful for you because your why has to sustain you when you're going to miss moments back in your home country or when you're having something that you wish that other people who don't live where you are could experience it and you're like, well, you just had to be there, right? Like you have these things that are going to happen in your life and your why has to sustain you even through the not so great times. Like I live in Portugal. One of the things is I don't really have many things bad to say, but bureaucracy here is a little special. And your why has to sustain you. It took me almost 6 months to get my residency permit. I couldn't leave. Like if I had plans to go somewhere, those plans weren't going to materialize, So it has to be something meaningful, like I said, and it has to be meaningful to you. You have to do your research, as Charlotte mentioned. You have to know at least kind of like where you want to be in the world. And you don't have to limit yourself. You can look at someone's, Instagram or YouTube as, inspiration or podcast as inspiration, but don't limit yourself or limit yourself to, oh, well, Portugal, only Lisbon, only Porto, right? If you do the work and do the research and you connect with people, whether it's in community or people like us who facilitate, um, you can find out those other hidden gems that are there that might be a better fit for where you want to be in your life. And then it's what we had talked about earlier. It's like you have maybe for the first time in your life the ability to have, agency and be the artist and the architect of where you want to be in your next stage, phase of life, chapter. What is that going to look like? You don't have to have the whole picture laid out in detail. Maybe it's just some sketches, right? But allow yourself to kind of envision the life that you want to intentionally create. And then you also have to leave some space because space is where the magic happens, the serendipity, the experiences that are bigger than you can even imagine for yourself. And so those are the things that I think are most meaningful to people when they think about making a move abroad.
Absolutely. I would say for me is, if at all possible, is spend time in that new place, or places. If you can't decide, like take the time to go to those countries, because my experience and how I see it is going to be very different maybe from someone else. For example, I've been to Mexico. I had traveled in and out of Mexico for so many years. So I kind of knew, even though I learned a lot since moving here, but I kind of knew what to expect. I took 2 extra research trips in addition to my previous travels, and I was kind of like, how does this feel for me trying this again, like trying it on in the mindset of living here. There are times even when I'm mentally like, I'm sick of being here. And it's because it's a small town. And I'm like, I want to go somewhere where I'm a bit like things are a bit more, unfamiliar or anonymous. But I always love going back. But they're just different things. So I think it's important for us to get beyond, the honeymoon portion, the excitement, oh, it's less expensive. As Charlotte said, yes, you got to look beyond what's the cost of the places that you're going to spend your money. Like, what else? What else? What are all the factors that are involved in making these moves? Like, what are those things that are important to you, not just what you think might be important to people that you watched online. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think us having access to the online is far greater than it was 5 and 10 years ago. Trust, because when I was looking at schools, I could not find anything that did not look like some kind of old time movie. I was like,
Wow.
like the outfits were pure giveaway for San Miguel. These people were like, oh, we sent our kid to Waldorf. Nothing wrong with Waldorf schools, but it was just like, oh, that must have happened like 20, 30 years ago, because I couldn't find anything really up to date. And so here we are, less than 10 years later, and there's so much information that's beyond, oh, the top 5 things to do in Mexico or places to visit. We're now living in these places, and there's so much more that people can attach themselves to. And honestly, I really have learned and seen the importance of the types of programs that we offer in so many ways. I personally spent and lost money that I could have saved if there was a person that I could have tapped into. And I'm talking a couple of $1,000s. Yeah, just from moving my stuff to traveling, because I didn't understand all of the immigration rules and things. And the people that I did talk to on the Mexican side wasn't accurate with what was happening on the US side. I bought plane tickets to leave on a certain day, and I couldn't leave because I didn't have all the stuff right. It was just a lot of things. And it wasn't a lack of me not researching those steps. It was just, yeah, not lack of them not being clear. And this is what happens,
Yeah.
like you said, the red tape, the bureaucracy, it can really overload us, especially coming from the US, where there's a better infrastructure compared to maybe where you are currently living or want to live. Yeah. Any ads, Charlotte?
Well, I think that that's all like good advice, but I think that we should, when we vacation, I think a good move is to vacation with a different mindset. Like once people come on our tours, and we go all over the world, like actually the cultural relocation tour, we cannot find where it existed before Beep started it. And there were cultural tours and there were relocation tours, not cultural relocation tours. But what I'm saying is that when you go on vacation, instead of just ziplining, take a look, dig into the culture, you know, do some little bit of spend a little bit of time while you're there and figure out, is this someplace I could live? What it's like to live here. Maybe even plan in advance before you go to meet with the facilitator, or you know what I mean, or someone that could give you relocation information. People, and that might be a job for somebody out here looking, you know what I mean? Just say, hey, if you're on vacation, you know what I'm saying? That could be a market. If you're on vacation and you just want an overview of what it's like to live here, what the services are like and everything like that. So I'm saying vacation in a different way would put us in a more significant, in a better light as far as moving as well. So I'll just add that.
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. I think, at least with my relocation tours as well, I make sure the cultural aspect is included because I
Mhm,
want to make sure that people are moving in to this mindset of understanding better
mhm,
where they're going and where they're anticipating living, and not just,
mhm,
it's beautiful that we have our Black community, right? And I have to be very honest. Initially, when I started this, I was actually bothered when people asked me how many Black people live in San Miguel. I was highly bothered by this. I would be like, "You moving to Mexico looking for Black people?" But what I learned through that, and someone said this to me at that time, this was over 5 years ago, they were just like, well, you've traveled. That doesn't mean other people have had these experiences where they're a little more open and they're more comfortable going to a whole new place. Maybe they've only lived in Black communities. So
mhm,
for someone doing this the first time or the first few times, for them, it's a big deal. And it took this veil out of my eyes where I was, because for me, I always looked at going to another place as adapting and embracing this new experience. But if that's not your thing and you haven't done it, but now you want to, I can understand this soft space, right? And that's what I embraced. I was like, that makes so much sense. I had to get off of my little travel high horse and really open my mind to what other people thought and felt, not just what my experiences were.
mhm,
And I started really understanding that people want to feel safe and they'll feel safe in what's familiar to them. So I could understand that whole,
mhm,
process itself, and why these groups and why what we do is really important and people attach themselves, and why this is a huge movement. We all know Exodus. We all know that people are really, mostly women, because we talked about that too, are really, holding on to these concepts and also following this movement because we have options and we know how to do them now. And I think
Mhm.
these programs and what we offer is super helpful,
mhm,
super
Yeah.
helpful.
I think this is the next great migration. When you look at points in Black history, this movement is no different, right? This is going to be a pivotal chapter, and much like the luminaries that came before us, a lot of it is and was female led, like the civil rights movement, right? When you look
mhm,
at Rosa Parks and you look at all of these other luminaries, and you look at Josephine Baker and all of that. So when I see us, taking up the mantle and, leading by example and doing it afraid, right? It's
mhm,
it's part of who we are. And one of the things and why Blacks at Global exists, and I tell people, like you can look at, Mexico, Panama, Portugal, wherever as sources of inspiration and maybe a starting off point to have a soft landing. But if there's another land that you have a calling, like I love New Zealand, right? people say, oh, well, are there Black people there? What is trending on TikTok now? Black people in Scotland.
That's true. I
Right?
saw that yesterday.
It's like,
I was
baby, we
like,
everywhere. We have been migrating for centuries, right?
right.
So just the mere fact that you're thinking of that, use it as a way to challenge, like, why would I think that we wouldn't be, right? Because that thought means that you're centering someone other than yourself in the story, right? Usually you're centering whiteness. So that there is opening the aperture and making you think a little bit differently. Think a little bit differently about your life. Open up to self awareness, like you mentioned, Michelle, talking about, you know, oh, wait a minute, you know what? Maybe people have other experiences or not have had many experiences in other countries. This whole journey is about not only just the physical transformation of moving from one place to another. That's buying a plane ticket and selling your shit and getting somewhere, right? It's the alchemy. The transformation goes so much further beyond that. And that's where you start to, if you're brave enough to take the journey, think about your level of self-awareness. Think about the shadow places within yourself that you might need to do some extra work, because it will come out. And if you do the work and you do it before you move, it makes it easier transition once you're abroad. But once you're abroad, life still lives. Things still happen, right? People in your family or loved ones may have illnesses. There's graduations. It's life happens wherever you are. And so you have to be prepared for, how am I going to do this if I don't have, my family nearby me? But guess what? You also, what I've been blessed with is just being able to make a new family abroad, right? I have friends that are now family. We do holidays together. We create different moments and adventures. And so again, it gets back to what I said about, being the artist and drawing your own picture. Like, what is it that you want for yourself, right? And don't put any limits, right? If no wasn't an option and success was guaranteed, what would you do?
I love that. I love that. I feel that I have walked the most in my purpose in doing what I do. Um, you know,
Same.
not so intentional initially, but just going for the thing, right? That I felt, oh, I can give this. This is naturally a part of who I am. I love community building. I love bringing people together, never knowing that it was going to be this chapter of my life and it would be this. And it's like, it's such a blessing to see the growth, as we were talking about before we started, just people blossoming, and I'm sure many of us who are in this particular, business, that we each probably didn't really look so far into the future. We just kind of started, and now we're able to see how many individuals that we've been a part of their journeys and their stories, and how our stories are intertwined together. So it is really, really a blessing, and I do encourage people that may have never had a business to just follow your thing. I think we've been so conditioned to working a 9 to 5 and all the things, and we're afraid of not knowing what's our income going to look like. Now, that doesn't mean you up and move without a plan and no money, unless you're that person who can make it. But I think it's important to also realize that you can start something completely different. You just work at it, make your plans and have the faith in that regard. Yeah,
You have
that's
so
key.
and you have so much help. I mean, just think about the internet. The internet is the internet has put so many people out of work.
True.
Okay? Because what you had to pay for in the past, Chat GPT is now giving you for free. You
Facts.
know, you
Yes, so much.
okay, I'm serious. And so there is no excuse for us not to be successful, because we have all the tools out there at this moment at our disposal. I don't think that we should take anything for granted, but I really do believe that if you have an idea, just put it out there. Talk to the internet. My chat GPT, her name's Cynthia. That's Cynfia. Cynthia gets me all together.
Love
You
it.
understand?
I need
Cynthia
to
helped
name
me
mine.
out on a lot of days. Cynthia got me saying please and thank you, like, oh girl, oh my God. I be so excited, y'all,
I
with some
love
of the
it.
stuff she come up for me because it would have took me a long time to do it on my
Yes.
own. So remember that you have technology here to assist you. You don't have to have all of the answers. And I think that that's what a lot of people get stuck at.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as people think that to get into business or to start something, they got to have a business loan. Well, I ain't never had a business loan.
Me
You understand
neither.
me? First business loan I ever had was the idle loan during COVID. That was it. It's like you start where you at. Just start where you at. And nowadays, I mean, if you have an idea, you put it out there on social media. Put it out. Everybody's a YouTube celebrity these days. You never know.
Sure
You know
is.
what I'm saying? You can have your own channel, baby. You could be a star. You know,
That's true.
you
On
don't
the
discount
Internet
your
Walk of Fame.
ideas. Yes.
It's
Yes,
so true.
Justin
So
Bieber ain't the
true.
only one can make it big on YouTube.
That is
Right.
so true. I love it.
So
We're all
don't
trying to
be
go
scared.
viral.
Yeah.
Everybody trying to go viral.
I
But
guess.
I'll say this one last thing. You did mention about people coming in. They always say, where the black people at? And I have just over the years, I invested in Panama in 2012. And it took me 8 years. It took me 8 years to make a friend. Okay. I had started coming to Panama in 2005. And me and my husband would come twice a year, 2 weeks at a time. Now, when you come to Panama, you're like, what is Black expats in Panama doing? We have regular monthly events that you could just drop down and meet people. You know what I'm saying? And so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's just so much. It's so different now because we're globally connected. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of the global, just all the information. It doesn't
Absolutely.
make any sense to just get up and move somewhere and not be able to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, get started with Chat GPT. Say, I want to relocate to Panama, Portugal, Mexico. What would my first steps be? Just
Yes.
start there.
Yes, please do start there. Find our channels. If you want to move to Panama, you want to move to Portugal, you want to move to Mexico, like I said before, Exodus Summit, like there's so much information in these groups and these subgroups that's free, right? So even just the start of the research, you don't have to pay for that to just even make a decision like, does this sound interesting to me? You do have to put some homework in. That's my
Yeah.
opinion. I feel that the more you try on this concept by looking online, I've seen people who are like major planners and they did great, and then sometimes people who are just kind of like, well, I'm just going to go, I'm going to show up, I've never visited before, and they still planned it and it worked out well, but then there's sometimes where it's like, oh, I didn't quite think this through, whatever. To me, if you're falling in that kind of category, try to make the trip, right? Try to go with a group, check it out, try it on. Even if you do like a cultural experience, you just want to do a vacation, if you have the time, maybe stay for at least 2 weeks. 3 weeks, a month would be great. Move around a little, slow travel if you're not sure. There's so many ways to kind of see, does this fit? And how do you feel when you're in those spaces?
Yes.
Personally, what I think has worked in our regard in San Miguel is that we really do have community there, right? When I moved there, less than 20 Black people. I'm not lying, okay?
Wow.
And that was it. And now it's like probably 400 or 500 people that live there. And it's just one of those things where people fall in love with the city already, but the community vibe, whether it doesn't even matter like what the color of your skin is, but the community vibe in San Miguel was already on point when I moved. I just kind of was like, oh, this is a whole village experience. You know, people are friendly, they're helpful. And I think that that matters because when you move, you need that kind of support, right?
Yeah.
Charlotte, having, you know, so much time pass and just making few friends, it's kind of trying on that, you know, emotional aspect. I remember living in Florida for a long time and I'm an introvert. I was fine. I didn't have a lot of friends and I was just like, you know, go to my house, do my job, do my business, do my work, go home, relax and stay, you know, stay in. I'm good with that. And if I want to go out, go to a little club, hear the kind of music I want, and that's okay. But I did not, when I had my kid, I did not have the support that I needed. I didn't have this kind of a more secured lifestyle where I felt that I could, you know, do something that was about Michelle, take care of Michelle sometimes. I always felt like, you know, I have to be right here, right next to my kid, living in the United States. I felt this way. Moving to Mexico, I felt very supported just from the moms that I met, from the people in our community that really were just like, do you need anything? Oh, do you want to borrow my car to go to the grocery store when I didn't have a car? I did not have that. So that really made a big difference. And I think that we attach ourselves to these situations that really make us feel welcome and really surprise us enough where we're like, yeah, you know what? I think I do want to live in that town. But I think you got to go there. You got to try it on. I really think that's important too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you touched on that's really important is the way we live in the United States is a very individualistic society, right? You are looking out for you and you alone, and nobody else is looking out for you because they're looking out for themselves. But when you go outside of the US, in so many other countries, so many other cultures, it's more communal and collective. And so you're not just thinking about you, you're thinking about your impact on someone else, which is, you know, we talked about COVID earlier. When you look at some of the responses to COVID, the numbers in the United States were disgusting, right? And when you looked at other countries, like I was recording the podcast during a time, still am, but I would interview people and they would tell stories about, oh, in Italy, you know, we had, you know, subsidies for, you know, bringing food to the house or daycare or other things. Like you had these social safety nets and support. You had community, people looking out for one another. I was at an event a few weeks ago here in Portugal, and one of the ladies I was speaking to, she's in her 60s. And so I think she was in kind of like this gray area with her residency, and there was a knock at the door and she was like, oh my gosh, she thought it was going to be like an immigration thing. And it was somebody from like an official office, but basically they said, oh, we're here because you're on this list and you're, you know, over 65, and we wanted to let you know that these are the services that you now qualify for, some things that are discounted or free, and if there's an evacuation or emergency, we're coming to look for you because we know that you're a senior. And it was like, she was like, oh my gosh, that would never happen in the United States. I cannot believe that
Love
proactively
respect.
somebody's gonna come to your house and tell you about
Right.
that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Nope.
And it was just amazing to hear her tell that story. And again, it just echoes what you were saying earlier, just like having a village. You know, we talk about, you know, it takes a village. It's an old African proverb, but we
Yes.
as Black people, this is our nature. But we have had to exist in a society, in a culture in America that we can't function. And what we're seeing now is more and more of us are cratering under the weight of the way we were forced to live there, and realizing
Absolutely.
or coming to this awakening and saying, well, is that all? Like, is there something more? Just that question alone can lead you down a path to, you know, eventually living a new life that you couldn't even imagine before, right? And so I think that's something that a compare and contrast that people need to think about. Like, what do you want in your life? What do you think is missing And that will lead you to the country. That'll lead you to the place. That'll lead you to your community, your village.
Well,
Absolutely. Go ahead,
I,
Charlotte.
I I was just going to add to that that a lot of times Black people do say, "Where do Black people live?" But that's just what we know, right? That's just what we know.
Exactly.
Um, but it takes time to kind of reprogram our mind.
Mm.
Even when it comes to racism. We are experts at racism. We're racism detectors, baby. We know it. We know it. And it's like it don't and we don't have to have no proof, but we know it. But if we go into other countries and people don't have that same experience. So sometimes they want to, be like, well, there is no racism. I just leave them be, and do what they do or whatever, because our experience is different. But we need to remember that we don't need to bring all of our hurt and damage and inflict it on other people. Um, you know, when you're talking about relocating and whether how professional services can be more helpful, like having a professional service that is going to encompass not only the logistical part of your moving, but be able to say, and hey, yes, we can connect you with this community. You can
Yeah.
come here, you can get all of the logistical information, you can meet the lawyer, the doctor, the realtor, the insurance broker, the moving company. You can meet all those people in one space. You can get all your questions answered. You'll be in a group where you other people are asking questions that you didn't even think to ask. You create a camaraderie just by being there in that group. You have your own family in that group. Like our tours are up to group beep 42. It's about to happen in September. We've done
Nice.
42 cultural relocation tours.
Love it.
And but what I'm saying is that when you come, making sure that you get to have what did I want I made a good note. It's the connections, guys. It's
Yes.
the connections. It's the connections that you want to make. Um, it's the connections that are going to ground you to your new space. On one end, it's like I'm here. I'm not trying to bring the US with me, and I've grown to stop saying Americans because there's North Americans, South Americans, and
Central.
Central Americans, so I'm not bringing my North American ways with me and expecting everybody to change. However, how wonderful it is when you can say, get my children out of here, and everybody know what you mean. You know what
It's
I'm
true.
saying? To be, you know what I'm saying? Just to be, to play old school music and everybody is grooving to it, but to still be in an international space where you still got new friends and, you're learning new ways of doing things, but you still have that soft landing
Yes.
where there are people that are going through the exact same thing that
Yeah.
you are. Panamanians, whether, Black Panamanians, they call themselves Afro Panamanians here, they have their own experience. They have their own experience. And even though they are Black too, their experience and our experience is similar in some ways. There were Panamanians who were enslaved and colonized and all of that. But the experience is different. And sometimes it's like bringing that thing we were talking about, what you bring with you when you move. The advice that somebody might give you. Bring those things that you're really connected to. When I moved here, we did a big move. We did a big move. I think we did a 20-foot container. But when I tell you, we had been in our house for years. We had our house for years, and we just had stuff that would get us through. If we had to rent the house, I didn't want a whole lot of stuff in there that I was going to be sick about losing, and everything. So we just had basic stuff, you know what I mean? And we didn't rent it for a very long time. But baby, when I bought the things that I loved seeing in my home in the United States to Panama, and I sat at my dining room table and I looked across the room and I saw that thing that I loved so much, that's when I knew I was home. So just being able to have somebody to give you that advice, and to help you kind of sort through all the steps that it's going to take, to have somebody that is going to vet the people that you're going to work with. You come into other spaces and the rules are different. The
Absolutely.
rules are different. And you can hear people talk all day long on the internet about their experience, but their experience is their experience. Talk to a lawyer that deals with everybody experience every day
Exactly.
so that you make sure your experience is being answered.
Exactly. I say that, and I wanted to emphasize just someone made a comment about boots on the ground, and that's why I wanted us to have this discussion because, yes, you can get the things online, you can start there, of course, you can do your research and things, but there's a difference when you can land in a space where you feel already welcomed, you feel safe, you feel connected, and that's, I believe, what the whole point of having these kind of groups. For myself, they're intimate, and these individuals that come, typically, they're still friends. Like my first three ladies that came, 4 years ago, they still travel together. They send me pictures. They are still doing their thing. One of them was living full time in San Miguel. She's checking out some other parts of Mexico. The other one moved to Puerto Vallarta. The other one's in New York, but plans on being here as a snowbird. They send me their travel photos all the time. And I mean, it's more than that. There are other ladies, it was like two in my group like a year ago. One just came back and the other one moved right away, and they're living in the same community, they're traveling, they're like little sisters, and one's like really introverted, the other one's like out there always like just having fun, and she says, man, I'm so glad that I'm friends with her. She's pulled me out of my shell and all the things. So yes, you can find your family, may not be your biological family, but I do believe that that makes a huge difference in those moments when you really might feel homesick. You may have, the depression. Like, let's keep it real. Sometimes that happens too. And I also think that when you see your things, if you're able to do that and that matters to you in your new space, in a new country, because I experienced this, that it does make you feel like you've arrived, right? And it feels like home, a home you recreated, and you feel like, comforted by this because you're still attached to things that you are leaving behind. We were talking about that from a psychological standpoint, how we don't always, people are not always considering that aspect. And because we've experienced seeing people go through these steps and stages of, immigration and how much does it cost? And now I have my residency and I found my place, or I bought my house and, I'm here and I got my family here. And then when you're in here in your house and looking around and then suddenly there's nothing to do per se, and yeah, you're woosawing, maybe you're gonna start crying a little bit because you're like, oh, okay, I'm
I
still
did this.
adjusting to this. I did it, but I'm adjusting to this new thing. And yeah, anything can either topple you on the positive side of the fence or the negative side of the fence. And that means, yeah, you don't speak the language and you're like, oh, this has happened to me. I didn't know that if I didn't get a paper bill, because I've been getting electric paper bills for my electricity all the times before, and one day I came home, the power's out. I didn't know I had to personally go online and seek it out if they didn't show up at my house. And, so then suddenly I'm walking down to security in my development, and it's after work time. So there's nobody to turn it on. Just like these are like the little things that I think for myself that I remember being super frustrated and just being like, oh, this is so ridiculous. How do you not give a bill? And now I'm here trying to download an app. It's in another language and all these like little things. If you have multiples of those things or your house isn't in quite the shape you expected, it can break you down, right? And you can feel super frustrated by that. So the point of saying it is that when you have the community, you have the support, and you have the things around you to make you feel like, you know what, I can quickly send somebody a message and ask a quick question. It makes such a big difference in that how you recover from these things and how you adapt into your new thing. It can either really push you over the edge, or you may need some time to just regroup and be like, I am officially in this new place. So all of these experiences really tie back into community and the boots on the ground and being connected. And, that's kind of what I wanted to really focus on, why it's important for us. I didn't really talk about the different steps, but we can go over that briefly because I know it's late for you, Kashan. But what are like some of the, just I guess, brief steps for immigration in Panama and in Portugal? Just like, the process itself. And you don't have to give us a lengthy version. Just, here's how you start and here's where it takes you. For example, I'll start with Mexico. You have to start in the United States now. There are no more regularization programs. If you are of Mexican descent and you're watching this, great, then you can be sponsored by your family. But if you are just someone who's a US citizen who wants to move to Mexico, you have to start at a consulate, Mexican consulate in the United States. You have to qualify financially. You contact the closest one to your home, wherever that is. They don't necessarily have a Mexican consulate in every single city or state per se, but you contact them online, you make an appointment, they will send you what the qualifications are, mostly financials, what that looks like for them, and then you go in with all these things, and then you move forward from there. And once you're approved, either for temporary or permanente, depending on how much you have, either through savings, pension, Social Security, income, they will say yay or nay, and you can do the temporary or you can do the permanente. And then from there, you have 180 days to enter Mexico, and you must enter before the 180 days expires. And once you enter Mexico, you have 30 days to complete the process on the Mexican side. And that means going to an immigration office, getting all of your paperwork that you brought with your passport. And when you're coming into country, you don't want to say you're a tourist because you're actually not a tourist anymore. And you want to take that to an immigration office. Again, get help. I highly recommend that you hire a facilitator or an immigration attorney to help you with the process on the Mexican side, simply from the language standpoint. You can get through it, but if you have any kind of complex scenario, like my situation was, my son's last name was different, mine, and all the things, and so I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any issues at all. You want to make sure all your I's are dotted, T's are crossed in terms of your name. Like if there's a hyphen and it's not in your passport this way, they consider that a complete different person. So these are the things that you may not know until you go through the process. And once you're in Mexico, you do that, and then you're good. If you're temporary, you're good for 1 year, and then at the 1 year anniversary, you can renew for 3 years, and at the 4 year mark, you can apply for permanente. And as of right now, you don't have to show any additional financials. So that's the steps. Those are the steps in Mexico.
Wow, that's great.
Krishan.
Yeah, I'll take Portugal. We're a little bit of a moving target right now, but we'll say as of today. So Portugal is similar in that regard. You have to start in the United States. The difference is you don't go to a consulate unless you're in Boston and New York, Newark, New Jersey has one, but there's also a third-party service called VFS. And if you go to their website, you can download the list. I'll talk specifically about the D7, which is the retirement visa. That's the same visa that I'm on. You need to show proof of self-sufficiency, so bank statements, things like that. You need to have a lease or that you have property, so you have to reside somewhere. You need to have that before you apply. So that means you're gonna have to put up money. Really, the first thing that has to happen is you have to have what's called a NIF. It's like a tax ID number that goes on everything. So, in order to open a bank account, which you have to have a Portuguese bank account, in order to pay the landlord or pay for your house. You also have to have health insurance. You have to have insurance to cover you during the time from when your visa is approved to the time you sign up for private health insurance. We also have a public system that is free, but you still have to have something in between. So once you have like, the full list of requirements met. You submit that to VFS. They basically look through the list of the requirements, make sure that all of the things are there, right? All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. They forward that to the consulate for review. That process could take some time because they basically, the United States is kind of divided. And so, California takes the West Coast and DC is like New Jersey and some other states. So basically, it can vary. It can be like 30 days if you're going to DC. It could be upwards of 3 months, if you're going on the West Coast. It all depends. But once you get that approval, you have 4 months to enter Portugal. You would complete the process on the Portuguese side. Again, same as Mexico, you would need to, or you should have a facilitator because I'm still learning Portuguese, but definitely I'm not conversational. I'm more transactional. So you want to make sure you answer these questions correctly, and you need to understand what's being asked of you. And so your biometrics will be taken, and it's basically similar to the process that you did in the United States. You have the FBI background check. You'll have a background check in Portugal that said that you didn't commit any crimes there. They'll go through, do a fingerprint, your photo, and then usually within 30 days to 45 days, you'll get your residency permit. That initial permit is a 2-year permit. At the end of 2 years, you can then apply for a 3-year. At the end of 5 years, you're eligible at present to apply for citizenship or permanent residency. Now, I say as of today,
Yes.
this is
Very
one of
important. Muy
those, yeah,
importante.
Say,
muy importante, right? O mais importante, right? In
yes,
Portuguese is very important to understand that, right? It's
mhm,
for today, right?
yes.
And so there is talk about moving that from 5 years to 10 years. But like I said, as of today, that is what the process is.
Okay, thank you for that. Charlotte?
I think Panama is similar in a lot of the ways that you speak about, Krishan. The background check. The one thing, and I don't know, is if it's required in Portugal, and I don't believe it's required in Mexico, but in Panama, you have to have an attorney. Okay, in Panama, you have to have an attorney to submit a visa application. The most popular one here is the pensionado visa, and the pensionado visa, which of course it's kind of obvious, has to do with a pension, but it does not necessarily have to do with the age of the person who is applying. So we have people here who have qualified for pensionado visa because they have the pension income is a minimum of $1,000 a month. Okay. And I think it's like $250 for each dependent that you have with you extra in that income. So if you're coming and you're bringing your wife on your visa or your husband on your visa, then you would have to have 1,250 a month income instead of 1,000. But the thing about the pensionado also is that you don't have to be pension age. You don't have to be what we consider retirement age. You just have to have income that says this is lifelong. So if you have Social Security or if you have disability, and it's a lifelong situation, people come here and they get pensionado on VA disability. because it qualifies as, but you have to submit, you have to have a letter that says this is a lifelong type thing. So that's very important. Yes, you have to have a background check. And the background check is done in the United States, and typically you bring it with you or send it DHL to the attorney that you're working with. The good thing is that you can get that temporary visa relatively quick. Like people come on my tours and, they start working with my attorney in advance. And then once they get here, they're turning in their papers. The attorney gets an appointment at immigration and you leave with a temporary card. And then I think it's like within 6 months, you come back and you get your provisional.
And what's
And
that?
this is, yeah, provisional, like I would say more like temporary.
Okay.
Like not temporary, but kind of interim. It's not your permanent.
Okay.
It is not your permanent e-cedula is what they call it. And I can't, and I don't want to speak too deep into it because different types of visa have a little bit of different guidelines. Like I
Okay.
came in on a visa because I was married to a Panamanian. That's different than coming in as a visa and a visa friendly nations visa. Friendly nations visa, you can come, you can open a corporation. There's an investment visa. You can come and you can invest 200,000 or put 200,000 in the bank or something. The friendly nations, you can come and be an employee of a Panamanian corporation. That's the other way that you can do that. But the main one is the pensionado visa. But once you get like a provisional, that's good for 2 years. Okay, in most cases, and then after the 2 years, you get your permanent. And unlike a lot of other countries that I hear about, your permanent is your permanent, baby. That's it. It's not, we got to reapply. This is permanent for 2 years. This is permanent for 3 years. None of that. The permanent is the permanent. You have to renew your ID. When it expires. I think right now, like they give you a 10-year ID. So you get a 10, and Krishan, when you said right now, let's be clear. That's the words that you should be hearing coming out of our mouth.
It's true.
Okay, right now,
It's
today,
true. It's true.
Today.
tomorrow could be a whole nother situation.
Yes, that's right.
For
Like
real. For real.
Cynthia let you know.
Cynthia, tell you,
She's like, hello. But it's
Right.
true. It's so
it is
true.
true.
Because
And
listen, they dropped
there's
that
a lot.
regularization program
Woo,
like
baby.
this.
That's it. That's
This.
it. There's a
It's like, that's
lot.
People were
it.
There's a
shook.
lot going on.
Shook.
The bottom line is that if it's something you want to do, don't hesitate. Just do it. For Panama, it's relatively easy. And then after that 2 years, you get your permanent. And then the other great thing about Panama is that there's not a whole bunch of restrictions about you being here. Like if you're gone for 2 years, you could maybe lose your permanent residence. But I mean, you got 2 years. You got 2 years to come back. So for those people that are saying, well, yeah, girl, I really want to do it, but I gotta wait until I do this, or I gotta wait until I do that, or I gotta, especially if you already have a pension, which is one of the easiest ways to get in, just do it. You don't have to move here today.
That's
The
true.
point that I want to make is that your passport is only as good as your passport is today.
Yep.
Right
Facts.
now, you can come to Panama and you can spend 6 months in Panama just on your passport. That's today. At the end of the day, say, for example, things just get unbearable in the United States, and you'd be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to put y'all on a timeout for a little bit. Just because you leave the United States doesn't mean you can't ever go back, as long as you have a passport. However, your passport is only as good as the government says it is. The government that issued that passport and the government that's accepting it. And those are the things that can change on a daily basis. Okay? So, what I'm saying is this: find that country, do the research, and start working on that process now. It's easy to find out. Ask Cynthia. Okay, she'll give you all the little details. Okay, but do it because it's not guaranteed. And at the end of the day, first of all, if you don't have a passport, just leave the video,
Right.
go on and
Go
look up getting a
apply
passport
right
because
away.
you there
Yeah.
none of this applies to you.
Right.
If you do not have a passport, this entire conversation does not apply to you. You are not eligible for anything we just talked about if you don't have a passport. So
Yes.
if you don't have a passport, if the people you love in your life don't have a passport, handle that today. Right
Exactly.
now, the passport is affordable. It's affordable. You
Yes.
know, it's not you don't have to wait because well when I'm done with the remodel. No, the passport is what $200, y'all.
Hmm.
Listen, you
Not
spend that on a
even.
pair of sneakers, and don't get me started. Okay, you
Right.
spend that on a pair of sneakers.
Yes.
Seriously, get your passport. Then that way you have an option. If you get a residency somewhere else, you have an option. But other than that, if you're there on your passport and that 6 months is up and the United States is a burning hot, hellified mess, you got to go back because you are in violation at that point if you don't have a
Yes.
permanent residence. So
Right.
figure that out. Don't wait until I don't know what we're waiting for. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
I'm in Colombia now for a reason. We need visa portfolios, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because Colombia got its stuff, and Panama has its stuff too. And the US is just a devil that looms over everything. Have your options. And I know I
Exactly.
just talked too long, so I'm gonna leave it right
No,
there.
that's
I'm
okay,
gonna leave it right
Charlotte.
there. But
I'm
if you
like,
don't have your
preach.
passport, this is not for you. Stop
Yeah,
thinking about it. Be about
just
it.
do it.
Just stop
Yep.
Exactly.
it. Stop
Yeah.
it. Happiest moment in my life recently was when my daughter's family became residents of Panama.
What?
No,
Love
they
it.
ain't got to move here. Listen, I'm like, baby, people calling your mama Harriet, and you ain't got a plan B? Come on now. Come on now. We can't do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
They had a
But you can only,
consultation with the attorney, figured it out, came here, got their temporaries.
Hmm.
yeah,
Praise God. I can
exactly.
live longer because I know that they have an option.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think that's
Go
so
about
key.
options.
It is. It's so key. And as we keep saying, as of today, right? Because things are changing rapidly.
Rally.
Even with Mexico, I mean, they had this whole program, and as soon as January, February rolled around, and people were like flooding Mexico, trying to get out of the north. Girl, Scheinbaum was like, we cutting that off. That whole regularization thing, which had actually been around for about 4 years. I don't know if
Oh,
people
wow.
knew this. It was about a 4-year program because of COVID. It was a program that they wanted to actually extend residency to people who got stuck here due to COVID. And then suddenly there were no real guidelines. And now they had like this huge loophole, and people were taking and have been taking advantage of it, even though they never really lived in Mexico. And then there were those who were living in Mexico who never left, did not get their residency. So this was kind of like one of the best opportunities for someone to say, you know what, let me try, especially if they had traveled into Mexico according to the time frame that was specified. And I remember telling people, like, if this applies to you, you should jump on it because you don't have to show financials. You don't have to go to consulate in the United States. You can just come back to Mexico, let your thing expire one day and start this process, which to me is crazy. So one difference I wanted to point out with Mexico and your countries would be that they don't even ask, and they probably, I believe, have begun or will begin doing this for a background check, which is insane. So,
Oh,
we
wow.
got some criminals up in here, the white collar criminals. I
Hmm.
won't get into it, but we've got some white collar criminals in San Miguel that recently got busted. And one of them was
Wow.
on America's Most Wanted. It got sent back. Swear to God.
What?
Yes, girl.
Oh my goodness. No, you have
Yes.
to have the US FBI background check and then you have a Portugal background check, but if
Yes.
you've never lived there, obviously it's gonna come back clean. But yeah, I mean, I thought all countries require that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I
That
could not get
is.
over that. I could not get over that. And then the whole, like I said, the R&E. So,
Hmm.
there's still things that are loopholed,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that they kind of cracked down on that in general. I
Mhm.
just think it's important, that just that whole transaction needs to be cleaned up, well, was cleaned up. But
Mhm.
yeah, I do think if you are eligible for any other place, you should apply if it's somewhere that you could go to should you need to in the future.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be a fairmonger, but I like the fact that we have options. We have options to be in other places around the world, and we collectively here, and also me and my son. If we want to apply for citizenship and a different passport in the future, that we can do that. So I'm very grateful for those options. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Let
for
me say
me,
this.
oh, go ahead, Charlotte.
Okay, go ahead, Krishan.
I was just going to add with Portugal, and I just wanted to, I didn't make this point clear. So I have residency in Portugal, but that extends to the European Union. There are 28 countries in the Schengen. So I can go in any country. I've been to, I don't know, 10 countries since I've been here, but I can go to Spain and, stay there for a while. I can go to France. I can move about without having to do visas. And so on your US passport, you can be in the Schengen zone for 90 days. But once you are a resident, like I am, and I have a 2-year residency right now, I can go in any member state. Right. So I'm not just limited to Portugal. There's, time periods in which I need to be in Portugal just to retain my residency. But think about, what you want for yourself and whether or not, what global mobility looks like for you. We're talking about options in terms of passports, visas, etc. But for some people, they want to be able to bop around. And so that might be an option as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's grand if you can extend this to your children and they want it, your family, even if they don't move permanently, maybe in the future, your grandkids may do it, or your children may say, you know what, I do want to take this opportunity to be somewhere else, because we really just don't know what's going on right now. The
So
world is crazy. It's
when we
insane.
first when we first started our tours, I did my first tour in May 2021. The the person that came on the tour, the typical people that came on the tour like the first year, are completely different than the people that come on the tour now. So the people
Absolutely.
that came on the tour the first year were like, oh wow, this is really cool. But they were very intimidated by the international prospect. It's like this is really cool, but I don't know if this could be for me. Whereas now people are coming with their background checks and listen, before I leave up out of here, I'm gonna need to have my ID. It's a whole nother situation. When they come, they're some of them are getting their apartments, some people are investing like before they go back home because so many people are talking about it now. There's so much more information about it now. And I just got to give it up to the three of us because, we were kind of in the beginning of this particular movement and we've been in it for a while. You have some people who are vloggers who do not have residency. You have some people who are vloggers and have only been vloggers and relocation specialists who have only been doing this for 3 months, but only been in the area or in this country for 3 months. And I'm just saying, there's a lot of information out there, but we have to be able to vet that information carefully. When you come into Panama, I don't know if it's like this with other Central or South American countries. Panama has a tendency, it seems, because I'm a corporation in Panama. My company, Black Expats in Panama, is incorporated in Panama and in the United States.
Same.
And you have to ask the question, give me the A through Z, because Panama seems to have a culture that does things in steps. So you'll go and you'll say, I need to do this, that, or the other. And the attorney or the professional that you're working with will say, okay, this is what you need to do. So you'd be like, "Bet." You got all that done. And then you get there, they say, okay, so now what? I thought you was finna give me my step up. No. Now we got DEF. Here's what I'm gonna need you to do. I'm gonna need you to tell me A through Z what I need to do. I'm giving you a tip. If you work with any attorney in Panama, you need to ask those questions. More now, since there's such an influx of North Americans coming through, they're better about giving you checklists, in advance of the things that you need to do. But other than that, they're going to piecemeal you, and you're going to be blindsided, because I think there's this, I don't know, an assumption that we know certain things and we don't. We don't know anything. When you go into these other countries, you don't know jack. I don't care what you think you know.
True.
You don't know
So
anything. You
true.
need to go there thinking, break it down to me like I'm 6 years old, because you don't know nothing. Because all you know is the North American way of doing it, if that's what you're from. But let me just say this about how the game changes. Recently, it was a big deal because the Panamanian immigration office said, look at here. If you done moved since you got your residency here and you haven't told us within 30 days, we're going to need to holler at you. Because since 2008, the rules on the books have been that when you come in, when you move, anytime, if you are a foreigner here, whether you got permanent resident or not, the rule says you need to go to immigration and change your email, change your address. Just like we have to change our driver's license in the United States. Okay, so it was a big thing. Quite frankly, I feel like it might have been a little bit of a money grab, because, like, if you were in violation, it's $100 fee right off the bat. And then the second violation, if it happened twice, then it's another penalty. Third time, you're getting deported for not
What?
reporting your change of address within 30 days. Now,
Crazy.
my attorney, I feel is very good. She is very good. Very, very busy, maybe over busy right now, but very, very good. But you know something that was completely across the board, no matter who attorney you had, nobody had told us that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nobody, and none of these attorneys had told us. I haven't heard of any. Don't get me to lie, and don't be telling me nothing different. Because at the end of the day, I ain't heard nobody say, "Well, my attorney told me that." Because in their mind, if it's something that they don't enforce, it's not important. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, if it's written, it's important. I don't care if they enforce it or not. So make sure when you are dealing with an attorney that you say, are there any rules that are not listed here that are listed in the books that don't usually apply? Because it's this whole concept of doesn't usually happen, hardly ever. No, no, no. See, that's when my North American gringa kick in. And I'm like, but what it say? But you got to know to ask these questions. And now you got people that had to run up to immigration, and all of them got fined $100. So they already have one
Money
strike
grab.
against them.
Money grab.
Yes, that's what it
But
sounds like. That's what it
it's
seemed
still
like
the
to me.
law. It's still the
But
law.
it's the
It's a
law.
money
And as
grab,
long as it's
but it's
written,
still the law. Right.
and
Yeah.
then you don't know if it's the other thing to keep in mind. Don't sit here and wait, because at some point, some of these places may be like, gosh darn, we got more foreigners than we do citizens here because of the movement. And you have some governments, I believe, that, are more powerful than other governments saying, look here, I'm gonna need for y'all to kind of back up on this, because all this money leaving the United States, I'll just use that government for example. And I've been saying that for years. When the United States really recognizes all of the money that's leaving the country, then they can make it harder for us to leave.
Exactly. Exactly.
They can make it
And they
harder for us
make
to get a passport.
right, and they create situations that scare people as well into being like, oh, I don't want to go there, especially Mexico. We already know Mexico gets a bad rap, right?
Mhm.
And all these things that are kind of coming up, and these travel advisories, because I've had a few people ask me, there's no context. There's zero context. It's like travel advisory to these states in Mexico, but not like no context. It's
Mhm.
crazy to me,
Mhm.
and so we just have to be mindful of, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe like some of the things that come, some of these protests and, gringos and all that, is sponsored by somebody. So it's
Mhm.
my opinion. Yeah,
Is. It definitely is. And the thing is that really honestly, travel advisories need to be in effect reversed.
exactly.
Facts.
Exactly.
That part.
Write
That
about yourself. Write
okay.
about yourself. Because look,
Exactly.
who like you're getting deported and kicked and sent to countries that you're not even
Abducted?
from. Like, it's crazy.
You're
Yeah.
getting abducted by
Yep.
people wearing masks.
Yeah.
They locking legislators in rooms. I mean,
Yeah.
busting into people's schools, and you want to talk to me about safety in Panama?
Exactly.
Okay, so what I'm
Crazy.
saying this is this, and I understand, like not being political because that can get really ugly. Okay, but at the end of the day, some of these countries, because the United States is, still seen as the superpower for some of these countries don't have the kahungas to say, listen, don't y'all go to the US because they're crazy. They're
Mhm.
not going to say it. They're not going to say it because they're going to be afraid of the backlash that it will cost their country. But honest to goodness, that's where we need to be most careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
I
that you
Absolutely.
said
also,
what
oh,
I
go ahead.
said.
Go ahead, Krishan.
The to build on that too is that what's interesting is that the United Nations is quiet.
Very.
The U.S. is acting a fool. The United States is quiet, and U.S. isn't the only one. We see some of the little buddies they've been buddying up to,
Yes.
and the UN has been silent. So all that is to say is nobody's going to save you. You have to save you, right?
Yep.
If you're not happy where you are, there's something in there in you that's saying that the situation is untenable, right? Stop fighting it. Stop resisting it, right? You have survived 100% of your best days and 100% of your worst days.
Exactly.
I
So
like
you
that.
have a great track record. So why would this be any different? Why would this be
Absolutely.
any different?
Absolutely. And I do think, on top of the plan, having the financials, but making the plan, making the steps in towards those moves
Mhm.
and that direction, it will happen. It may not happen in this month. It may take you 6 months or 12 months. We talked about that earlier as well, is not being reactive to scenarios and fear per
Yeah.
se. But if you see something, do something about it. Like I saw
Mhm.
that outside of even the politics and the administration and all the craziness, for me, my biggest thing was I cannot drop my child off at school every day and worry about a shooter, an active shooter.
Mm.
That was my thing. I was just like, he's just in kindergarten and I'm already stressed out. There is
Mhm.
no way I'm going to live for 11 more, 12 more years of this nonsense. And we had, shootings in Florida, at high schools in Florida that I protested in. And I was just kind of like, I'm just not doing this. I remember sitting in the parking lanes waiting to pick them up, and they were like little targets, in their little class groups, and we're in our cars. And I remember thinking this actively in my mind every single day. And then, the whole training of piling into the bathroom and locking I was like, no, man, no, I'm not doing this. We got to go somewhere else. somewhere else, even if I have to homeschool him, and this is what we're going to do. So for me, that was my biggest thing, and let me figure out how do I make this work in another country, because that's what I wanted. I did not want to live anywhere in the United States. I had exhausted all of the things that had to do with the US. And I had options to go to, for example, St. Martin. I remember his other side of the family, like, oh, why don't you come to St. Martin? I was like, I don't think so. Y'all like this big, and there's hurricanes all the time. I don't want to be trapped on an island either. So that's where I started. I started researching, doing homework, figuring out how do I make this sustainable and all the things, So there was a good almost 2 years, definitely a year and a half of planning to
Mm.
make it happen. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And for me, I
that's
made the decision in 2017. I didn't move till 2023 because I needed to wait till my daughter finished high school. It left me a lot of time for planning, but I was planning towards a life in New Zealand. I went to New Zealand in 2017. I scouted again in 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, but it was through the Blacks of Global podcast that I ended up in Portugal. I looked at other countries because my daughter felt New Zealand was too far and I couldn't qualify for the visa there anyway, at the time. And so I scouted Costa Rica, affectionately Costa Rica, and and then I came to Portugal as the second country I wanted to test out, and instantly fell in love with it. And the next year I came back and got my apartment, and I've been here. But the plan for me was never to move to a country that English wasn't the first language, the primary language, right? But
yes.
I'm now living in a country that I learned Portuguese. I go to the store, I do all these things. You can do hard things, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. I love that.
it's never too late. And so I look at it like every day I practice my Portuguese, I have my routine in the morning, and I look forward to that time because I also know from a brain health perspective, and we talked about, healthcare a little bit, we talked a little bit about mental health, that it's something to pay attention to during this process and after. But the other thing to keep in mind is as we age, right? Our
Yes.
brains also change. And what we don't talk enough about is the diseases of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of
Absolutely.
stress that we endure in the United States, a lot of stress that we endure by the way we live, the foods we eat. And so my time in the morning where I practice my Portuguese, and now I'm also practicing Spanish again, um, is my attempt to protect my brain by teaching it something new every day. My
Yes.
old routine in the US, I could have done that in my sleep,
Yes.
day in, day out. It was like Groundhog Day. But every day, I'm learning something new. I'm reading a sign that I didn't wasn't able to read the day before. I'm learning a new word. I'm applying what I've learned. And so that is, building synapses in my brain and preserving in my mind my brain health. That's going to last me. I'm looking at my body. Yeah, I do Pilates and things like that, but I also have to work my mind. So you don't have to be intimidated. So many times we put up roadblocks. Oh, I couldn't move to a country and speak Spanish. I couldn't move to a country that
Yeah.
to speak insert whatever language. Why can't you? Most people in other countries can speak other languages in addition to English,
Absolutely.
right? So think about it. You can do hard things. I didn't think that I would be learning Portuguese and now Spanish at 51, but guess what? I like it.
I love it.
I'm 61. I'm 61 and learning Spanish. And you make such a good point because the thing is that I am using parts of my brain that I've never used before. Or that I don't remember using because how long has it been since I learned a language, right? And so it's like it's challenging, but it's a good thing. We have cafe and conversation every fourth Sunday. We have a
Love it.
brunch, and people just come. And I just got this little cheat sheet, and we just get up and introduce ourselves and have this conversation, this introduction conversation back and forth between each other. And for some people, it's just being bold enough to try.
Right.
Yes.
Some people are just they're not even willing to try. But that's another part of community. That's another part of the soft landing. And then for some reason, with all of the activities, because we also have a business to business network, and of course the Welcome Wednesday. But for some reason, the people connect at Cafe and Conversation in a whole different way. It is absolutely common that we'll have Cafe and Conversation from 11:30 to 1:30. People will put posts like, listen, I met these people at Cafe and Conversation, and we've been out in these Panama streets till midnight. And
That's
I don't know
true.
what it is, but
It's
it
true. It's
does that.
community. It's
But let
community.
me just touch on the trauma for a second. That's real. That is real. And Michelle, you said, you might cry a little bit, and sometimes it's just like, I feel melancholy or I feel like emotional just because in a way, I feel like I escaped. And I feel like when I got my things in the house, that's when it really hit home. And honestly, when I would wake up every morning, because before then it was like you're on vacation. If you come from a place where it's not warm weather all the time and you live in Panama, it's like, you're doing your own thing. It's like you're on vacation. When I got my stuff, it was like I was home. And when I'm here, I sleep like I've never slept before. I feel so much better. The food is so much better. I had good relationships in the States and I still have good relationship in the States, but I have a different kind of relationships now. And I feel like there comes a point where we realize that we've been living in a dysfunctional family, the US. The US is like, it's a dysfunctional family that you don't know that other families are not like that until you go to somebody else's house,
That's
right?
right. It's so
It's so
true.
true.
Yeah, you don't know that what y'all
Oh,
doing is not normal until you start going to other people's houses and see
oh,
that they don't do it.
it's so
So
true.
there is this there is this anxiety, and I can't speak for everyone, but for a lot of people who moved here, our testimonies are like mirrored. There is this anxiety that we carry that we didn't even know we carried
This is true.
until we didn't have to carry it anymore.
Mhm.
Just even getting through that, emotionally, and then you start dealing with, but my family is still there. I want them to have opportunities to be able to experience something different. Then you start dealing with that. And you don't want it to look like you're saying that your life is perfect because you're living in another country. You don't want it to look like that. I just think that the things that are wrong with this country are less impactful to me.
Right.
They don't really, the things that are wrong or the things that I may not like about it are so inconsequential to the things that I do like about it, you
Right.
know, but also the thing about the language too is that sometimes we can be ignorant about what's happening to the locals.
This is
And it
true.
is important that because I'm like, I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what's happening in the U.S. I mean, I'm just saying in general. Of course, I have to keep up with things that are happening. But even in your country, when you don't know the language, you kind of excuse yourself from knowing the situation. You're like, well, I can't understand the news. So it's important because you need to know what's happening around you as well. And we
Absolutely.
come here to these other places, and it's such a reprieve from what we've dealt with in the United States that we can get really kind of silly,
Yeah.
and I don't want people to do that. You got to be mindful of what's going on in your new home and try to be empathetic because we come to different places. Let's face it. You don't go to nobody else's country for a worse life.
No,
You can
Facts.
stay home for that.
exactly.
Okay? So we're coming here for a better life, but we're gentrifying. Okay? We are gentrifiers in
We
these
are part of that,
places.
for
We
sure.
are. It is. And the way I dealt with that is like, okay, this is true. However, comma, if we don't buy it, somebody else is. Bottom
Yep.
line, it's not going to change if we don't buy it.
Mhm.
But if we buy it and we come in, going back to the culture and the respect for the people, if we come in and we saying, okay, this is my new community, we've looked at developing things for Black expats in Panama. And the guidelines was like, you can't move nobody out their house. You know what I mean? You ain't tearing nobody neighborhood down to get it. And we like to negotiate. People, brown and Black people, getting some of those contracts. And what can we do when we're there to make sure that we are supporting the local community? One thing I'm saying, I'm gonna be quiet. The other thing is, I've been talking to some people and I noticed something. Some people say, well, sometimes the Panamanians ain't so, they kind of treat me funny or something like that. That is not the norm. That is not what most people say. But then I started really looking at the people that were saying that. And I thought about Martin Luther King. And he said, you shouldn't be judged on the color of your skin, but the content of your character. And sometimes, let's just be real, y'all. It is not the color of our skin. We got to get beyond that. Sometimes it's just your funky ass attitude. Okay? It is the content of your character because we come here with colonizing behavior
That's true.
Mhm.
sometimes. I said what I said.
Sometimes it's
And
true.
that's all I'm going to say. Not
That's
going to say
good.
anything else.
Thanks, Charlotte, for just like bringing the truth.
Yes.
Don't hold back, sister.
That's
I
right.
love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my God, this was so amazing. I
Oh
could
my
be
God.
here. I could be here longer. I'm just going to be mindful for Krishan because I know it's super late for
It's
you.
something.
I
It's
really
almost
appreciate
midnight.
it. Yes. Oh, yes. So I want to say too, I agree. There's so much more that we could talk about. Maybe we'll continue in the future. But I want to just kind of emphasize that there's so much knowledge and information in our experiences and other people who've been doing this for multiple years that I want you all to keep that in mind when you're making the decision to move abroad is look into each of our businesses, our channels. All of your info is in the description here on my channel. Please, I want to also say subscribe and like, por favor, this video because it really does help. Just, the efforts that go into these conversations that we have on Wednesdays. And I appreciate everyone who tunes in. I have like my hardcore regulars, and then now we have like several people that we share in common. And all the ladies and women, mostly men, if you're there, hi. But all of the people commenting, I appreciate you. I did not get to say hey to every single one because we're so deep, but I appreciate you chatting in the comments and supporting each other. I did see all the things that came up. No real questions, but mostly backing up what we're talking about. But I really appreciate you ladies. Didn't get to all of my things, but I know that we've been here for almost 2 hours. And I just want to make sure that Kashan gets her rest so she can wake up in the morning and practice her Portuguese. Don't let me be the reason that you did not practice tomorrow morning, okay?
Oh, no, it's all
But
good.
yeah, so if you want more information about what we do, please feel free to reach out. I am Michelle for Casa Elm and Hacienda Elm, as you can see, Charlotte Van Horn for Black Expats in Panama, and Krishan Wright for Blacksit Global. All of us have crucial, vital experience and info that can help this thought become reality and your reality to become a soft landing. experience by what we can offer in terms of not just our services, but what we do and the things that we see, not just our own personal things, but the things that we see happen with other people. And we talked about that throughout this conversation. I wanted to talk a little bit about like healthcare and things like that, but I think you can find info about those aspects. I feel that the conversation today was more around why it's important to kind of come open and be ready to embrace these experiences that are in front of us, and also things that you should expect, the differences for immigration and all that. So is there any last thing you want to add? Charlotte Van Horn, go. And then Sean.
Just want to say this was an amazing conversation. And I think that, I love Black women, period.
Same.
Okay. And I think the one thing that I love so much about us is that we're authentic. Okay. On the most part, we're much more authentic than other women. And this conversation was not scripted. So you got an unscripted, from our heart conversation. And baby, I don't care what else happens. It doesn't get no better than that. And in case you didn't know, authenticity is the new sexy. Okay. And peace is the new prosperity. So I just
Absolutely.
appreciate being here. You can find me everywhere at Black Expats in Panama, or we also go by Beep Tours, because we've expanded into Colombia and other places. We're in Brazil in April of
Okay.
2026. We're in Ghana in October and November. We're looking at South
Nice.
Africa
Girl.
for
Yes.
next year. We have a women's retreat in January, and the title is "We Deserve It."
I
Baby.
love
So
that.
that is that.
Yes.
We do a lot of things. We're very busy. Find us everywhere at Black Expats in Panama. And thank you for those who tuned in today.
Thank you. I want to point out Black expats in Panama. BEEP is that
BEEP is the
the B,
acronym.
right? Acronym
BEIP,
P. Okay.
BEIP. And you can also find us at beeptours.com or
Awesome.
blackexpatsinpanama.net. List all we so everybody's not on social media. So we try to keep our website as updated as possible. And of course our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe when you can. But
Yes.
thank you. And I appreciate this has been lovely. I'm gonna send you both a link so y'all can get on my podcast,
Yes.
Black Expat Journey, because I've
Please.
enjoyed this so much.
Same,
Oh,
same. We
yeah.
could talk for another hour.
Likewise.
I'll be
Yes.
have some drinks and eat my dinner and just keep going. This is amazing. I appreciate you so much. Okay, Krishan, your turn
Yeah,
before
this
we
was
check out.
fabulous. This was
Thank
so
you.
edifying in so many levels. I love the conversation, the energy, everything. So you can find me at Black Sit Global on the socials. I'm on YouTube, normally live on Thursday nights, but tomorrow I'm taking the day off since I was here today. You can listen to the Black Sit Global podcast. We have just finished season 7. Season 8 will be premiering sometime in January of 2026. So we have what, 80 episodes for your listening pleasure of
Wow.
expats all over the world. You can join us inside Black Sit Global Passport, our private community. We have monthly accountability groups, workshops, etc., to support you on your journey. And yeah, I would love to connect. You can do one-on-one coaching, all the things. And so, like I said, it was a pleasure being here. I appreciate, Michelle, the invitation. This was such a lovely conversation, and look forward to having some more.
Awesome. I appreciate you both so much. I'm glad that I got to catch up with you again, Charlotte. Krishan and I have caught up over the past couple years,
Mhm.
actually, most recently, I think earlier this year, late last year. But it's always nice to I always see your things, and when I have time to go on YouTube or online and things pop up, always exciting to see us that started back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, doing our thing, always in that headspace of support and wanting to continue spreading, this movement that we're part of to people who have never heard of it or that are interested and they're learning. And we want to be there as much as possible to support those individuals who need it the most. And we know we're talking about a lot of single women, not only, but mostly. And I just want to say that you can do this. It's not hard. You can find the support out there in the country that you're interested in, or start somewhere that you're not sure, is that my spot? See how it works. And if there's another place that this does not exist, then go there and create it, okay? Learn about it and then go there and create it. So I'm Michelle Wedderburn for CasaELM, which is a boutique guest house in San Miguel, and also Hacienda Elm, which is a 60-plus community for individuals who want to age in community and age with support. It's still independent living. So check those out online. You can find those on Facebook, Instagram, and here on my channel. And also you can find us at .coms. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything. And I really, really, really appreciate all of you that showed up tonight or this afternoon. And definitely Krishan for staying up this late. I hope you rest well. And that's it. That is it. Please make sure you subscribe and like this video. I appreciate all of you so much.
Buenas
All right.
noches.
Buenas noches,
night.
mi gentes. Let me disconnect. Give me 1 second. Just want to make sure I cut us off.
Let me see. Yeah, I think you're gone.
All right, we did it.
Yay, that was so much fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you.